Welcome to the SportsWagers.ca podcast with Brian Sherwood Steinberg and Matthew Finney.
Welcome to the SportsWagers.ca podcast. I am the man behind the board, Matthew Finney, joined this week by Brian Sherwood Steinberg, all those great free daily plays, those write-ups over on SportsWagers.ca. Good day, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Matt. I don't know if you noticed this, but they have like a day for everything now. Like they got Earth Day and Secretary's Day and President's Day and Marijuana Day and Jackie Robinson Day and Nursing Day. They got a day for everything now, right? Every single day you're on Twitter, it's a day for something.
Oh, it's a new hashtag, yep. What's trending?
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see a Leave Me the Fuck Alone Day. Let's have a day like that. Or you ever go into like these stores, right? Like Shoppers Drug Mart or whatever. They're asking you for like a donation on your way out, right? Like you're checking out and they go, you want to give $1 for so-and-so, like this great charity? And you almost feel obligated to do it, you know? Because they put you on the spot, right?
Oh, I do it they get me every time.
$1?
Yeah, every time.
You know what I say to them? Whenever they ask me, I say, on every sale that you make, you put a quarter in your little dip cup there? You put a quarter or a half a buck? When you start doing that, I'll start donating every time I check out, okay? Other than that, leave me the fuck alone. That's what I say every time I check out and they ask me. It's just disgusting. I went to a Mervish production, which is, like almost a Broadway production in Toronto. And at the end of the show, the actors at the end of the show, they came out, they asked the audience to donate to this charity on their way out because of I think it was this like homeless charity or whatever, right? Like, it's just wherever you go, whatever you do, like there's GoFundMe accounts, there's whenever you check out, there's a day for it's just incredible, man. It's just incredible these days. Anyway, I wanted to talk about, I don't know, that was just on my mind, but I wanted to talk about baseball betting a little bit. And, there's a couple of options in baseball betting. And a lot of people like to bet the first 5 innings and take the bullpens out of the equation. I was listening to the White Sox game. I was watching the White Sox game the other day, and the Hawk, he used to do the broadcasts. Like he's sort of semi-retired. He's just doing White Sox home games now on Sunday. And I love listening. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I love that guy. I think he's one of the most knowledgeable baseball people. He's been in the game 50 years, and he just loves baseball and talking baseball. And he was saying that the biggest change over the last 50 years is the bullpen, is that if you don't have a good bullpen, you can't win anymore. Like bullpens decide more games than anything right now. And that's what he was saying. Anyway, I can understand that you kind of want to take the equation or the bullpens out of the equation. But here, in this day and age, right, when you bet 5 innings, I think you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and I'll tell you why. There's live betting now. If you have a lead after 5 innings, you can buy out of your liability and free roll on the game anyway, right? If you're losing after 5 innings, you got no chance of coming back. If you're winning after 5 innings, you can buy out of that liability or even cash out the bet, right? So you don't have to put the bullpens in play. You can take them out of play too, right? But if you're behind after 5 innings, you're taking away your chance to win that game, to win that bet. Right? So I don't like it for that reason. Another reason I don't like it is, because I do a lot of betting at Bet365, and they pay out bets on when your team has a 4-run lead or more, right? Well, that's another reason not to play it in 5 innings. Your team could be up 3-0. After 5 innings, or they may not have that 4-run lead. You're opening up a bigger window by playing it in 9 innings as opposed to 5. There's just so many better things that can happen over 9 innings, right? If you're behind after 5 innings and you bet a 5-inning game, you got no chance of coming back. No chance at all. And if the bullpens are that erratic, don't you want to have that chance to come back? Of course you do. If you are ahead after 5 innings, you have some options. If you got a 3 or 4 run lead, you have some great options. If you got a 1 run lead and you're afraid of the bullpen, your pitcher's coming out, your starter's coming out, you can cash out right there and then. So I think that in this day and age, with so many variables, with so many more options than in previous years, I think that a full game is a much more prudent way to be betting baseball, as opposed to just a 5-inning bet. And that's why you see us betting full games now. We used to throw in 5-inning games and try and take out the equations. But why don't you try, factoring in those bullpens into your wagering, into your handicapping? You can probably get some good value. And even if you don't, if you're just going based on the starters, you can use the topics that we just discussed or the options we just discussed when making your bet. And I understand that a lot of people aren't able to sit and watch the games and are able to use those options, like buying out after you have a 5-inning lead. But if you watch the games, I think it's I think 9 innings is a much better way of going about it, Matt.
Just watching those games too is so huge, especially for that live in-game betting. We see it all the time where, a starter's dealing, he's gone, maybe 90, 95, maybe even 100, 105 pitches, whatever it is. They got a 1-run lead, a 2-run lead, even a 3-run lead, and there's no reason not to throw him back out there. But we see these managers all the time overthink it, make the call to the pen, and what do we see? Walk, hit, boom. The lead's gone. Everything kind of blows up. And you've got to be watching those games to be able to jump on situations like that. But if you can get a feel for a shaky reliever coming in, or you can see a guy does it, you can see it, Brian, every time when you watch a game. When a reliever comes in and he doesn't have it, man, you can jump right on top of them live betting at Bet365.
Yeah, you really can. And, it doesn't take long for you to sense that a pitcher or a reliever just doesn't have it. Right? After 2 or 3 pitches, it's ball 1, ball 2, right? Ball 3, whatever. And they start throwing balls, right? If they start missing the plate, listen, these pitchers, we've talked about it before, these relievers are all former starters that could not make it as a starter. And being in the bullpen is a demotion. These are usually 2-pitch pitchers. They're erratic as can be. Very few bullpens are stable. Right? Every year, if you look at the bullpens every single year in Major League Baseball, right, it fluctuates every year. Like the list of the teams from top to bottom are completely different every year. So you might have a team like the White Sox, their bullpen finishes 3rd, right, or is ranked 3rd, and the next year they're ranked 23rd. And it's like that with almost every team, right? So bullpens are a big crapshoot, and I understand why people want to take that out of the equation, but I also think that you are cheating yourself a little bit by playing, especially when you're playing underdogs, by playing 5 innings as opposed to the full game, right? Now, I'm not saying there's something wrong with playing 5-inning games, right? You can do that, and you can do well too. It is an option, right? Taking the equations out of the bullpen. I totally get that. I just believe and trust that you're cheating yourself a little bit. You're not giving yourself as good a chance to win a baseball game by playing it in 5 innings. You got if you play it in the full 9 innings and you're behind, you got a lot of time to make that up, right? To come back from a run or a 2-run deficit. So I like the 9-inning game. Always have. And baseball is a great sport to bet because of those tremendous opportunities every single day, with the reverse run line, with the money line dogs, and we prove it every year. There's great underdogs every single day. So I would stick to the 9-inning game as opposed to the 5-inning game.
Another big thing we've been kind of focusing on this year, too, is we started last year with Colorado, Coors Field, that Coors Field effect. Balls are always jumping out of there. But there's so many other ballparks around the league where, it doesn't really matter who the pitcher is. There's not a lot of forgiveness. And you see a Max Scherzer go to Milwaukee. He's going to give up maybe a couple of bombs, It's a small place to kind of be pitching in like that. You get squeezed in Cincinnati, all sorts of places, Baltimore, Toronto, Boston. Tons of ballparks around the majors, Brian, that we like to focus on. And it doesn't really matter who's pitching or who's playing. there's just such a great opportunity on the reverse run line with the dog in those games that we're targeting them kind of heavily. When we saw that with the Marlins this weekend, had some luck with that, and it's something that we're going to keep doing, I think, eh?
Yeah. Like you get these extreme hitters parks, like the parks you just mentioned. You got Coors Field. We already are working that angle. You have Cincinnati. You have Philadelphia. Even Atlanta and Minnesota, fairly new parks, especially Atlanta. But they seem to be extreme hitters park. Once the summer rolls around, they appear to be extreme hitters parks. So you can play like these pitchers. There's very few. There's only a handful of pitchers that are immune to the park factors, right? Just a handful. Maybe guys like Chris Sale, Max Scherzer, Strasburg, and even those ones aren't completely immune, right? Especially at Coors. But you take these 500 teams, like Colorado, like Philadelphia, like Atlanta, right? And you can almost blindly play the reverse run line in our parlay strategy. Those parks, like we play the parks more than we play the matchups, right? We just take a look at, okay, we're Cincinnati's at home. We take the underdog as one of our add-ons on the reverse run line, right, in our 3-game parlays. And we'll do the same at Milwaukee and in Atlanta. When you got games where there's going to be 11, 12, 13 runs scored, there's a great chance the winner's going to win by more than a run. And that's why the alternate run lines are so effective in using them in parlays or betting them straight, however you want to use it. We started posting a few alternate run line games. Like we had one on the last weekend that won. San Diego, they were playing. Was it San Diego? No, it was the Marlins actually in Cincinnati, and they won 6-0.
We had that Padres game on a bunch of parlay tickets on Saturday when they played the Dodgers. 4-1, the Dodger reverse run line in Mexico was paying that day, it's fucking ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous.
It was ridiculous, and that series, incidentally, was in Mexico, where the elevation is high, like Colorado. So, we use that anyways, it's really something good to consider, playing these alternate run lines at these extreme hitters parks. They're just great bet. I'm starting to find these alternate run lines very interesting too, like especially in these evenly priced games. Like you got a game where a team is $1.05 or it's a pick'em game or whatever. The reverse run line, right? So you might be laying $1.05. The reverse run line on those are like plus $1.75, plus $1.85, plus 90. They're just such good bets, as opposed to just, laying 5 cents or whatever, for over time, you're going to make it up. Like when you lose a game by a run, over time, you're going to make it up. You're going to make it up on the extra juice that you're taking back by playing the alternate run line. And, maybe in our next podcast, I'll have a look at the percentage of games that are won by one run every year or over a 50-year sample, and I'll come back with those numbers, and then I'll work out the rest of the numbers when playing the alternate run line, as opposed to laying anywhere from 5 cents to 10 cents. But I think it is a profitable angle, Matt, and I think it's something that you should strongly consider. And we're finding the same in the NHL playoffs, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, it's not just baseball. It's crossing over those small point spreads in basketball, and it's the reverse puck lines in hockey. It's amazing the prices on some of these games.
Yeah, when you're playing these hockey games, NHL games, you're taking let's say you're taking the favorite at minus 120, or you're playing them in regulation, minus a half plus 120, right? Minus a half plus 120, right? Well, in order for you to win that bet, you got to be up by a goal. Right? You have to be up by a goal. If the game is tied or ends tied, right? Or if the game is tied, let's say with 3 minutes to go, you're in trouble on that regulation bet, right? You're in way better shape if you're laying 1.5 pucks and you're up a goal, because 100% that team is going to pull the goalie. And it's even better in the playoffs. Like we are finding that very few games in the playoffs are decided by one goal unless it goes into overtime. And if it goes into overtime, you lose your regulation bet anyway. But we're finding that in the playoffs, very, very, very few games are won by a goal, because every game is so crucial. Every single playoff game is so crucial The teams that are down a goal are pulling their goalie with 2.5, 3 minutes to go, and that's a long time to hit that empty netter, right? Very rarely are these teams not scoring an empty netter. You see it almost every single game, And then if you're playing if you're playing the underdog, instead of playing plus 130, you lay 1.5 and you're taking back 3.5 to 1, right? Because it's the same deal with the underdogs. They're up a goal, you need them to win, and the other team pulls the goalie. So I think these are great bets, especially in the playoffs, more so in the playoffs than in the regular season for the reasons I mentioned above, right? During the regular season, a lot of teams are, they want that single point. Those single points, so with 6, 7 minutes to go, right? Or even in the third period or whatever, and the game is tied, they don't want to give up that single point. They want to lock up the point and then see what happens in overtime, right? So I think in the playoffs, from what I've seen so far this year, I think laying the 1.5 pucks is just such a great option. And we've cashed a bunch of tickets on those. Had we not been making so many series bets, we probably would have made a lot of minus 1.5 bets. We did hit, we have hit some and have added them on parlays, and they're great bets, Matt. And then you talked about basketball, which is another great, listen, people like to buy points. In football, you see a team is 2.5 point dog, and people say, okay, well, I'm going to protect myself and buy a half point and take it up to 3, right? That's the mentality. That's playing. We always talk about playing into house strengths and house weaknesses. When you're buying points, you're playing into the house strength, right? What we like to do, what we do often, Matt and I talk every day. What we do often is we sell points. Instead of buying points, we sell points. So you take a basketball game and you take a 6-point favorite. Well, we make it 11.5 point favorite and take back 240, right? Another thing we're doing that we're finding is just a tremendous bet is what we call a crossover wager, right? In basketball. And you can apply this to college. You can apply this to the pros. You take a 2.5, a 3.5 point underdog, right? Let's say 3.5 point underdog in the NBA. There is no question about it, based on the odds, based on the point spread, that underdog has a good chance to win outright, right? 3.5 points is 2 possessions in a game where there's going to be 225 points, right? It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. Well, instead of taking the money line at, let's say, plus $1.60, on a 3.5 point favorite, we're crossing over. We're making the underdog that was a 3.5 point dog into a 2.5 or a 3.5 point favorite, right? It's such a good bet because we're buying those points, but really if they win, there's a really good chance they're going to win by more than 2.5 points, right? That's nothing. That's 1 possession. But because it's a 6 point, because we're buying 6 points, we're taking back odds of like 220, 230, 240, and it's a great add-on to parlays, okay? Or straight up bets. If you like the underdog, a small underdog, you can almost do that blindly too, especially in college. And in the NBA and college, you take a small underdog, 2.5, 3, 3.5 points, right? Again, they absolutely, obviously have a chance to win outright. You cross it over. If they win the game, they got to win by at least 1, right? They have to win by at least 1. There's no ties in basketball. They have to win by at least 1. Might as well take that up to 2.5 or 3.5 and take back a massive price. Right? It's just a smart play, and it's playing into the house inefficiency. So on the alternative point spread, I'm pretty sure they have it at most books now. You cross over on these small underdogs, and you can apply it to football too, right? You take a 2.5 point underdog in football, instead of taking back $1.20, cross it over and make that underdog a 3.5 point favorite, and you're going to take back 260, right? And it's really good for parlays.
Yeah, you talk about those house inefficiencies. There's a reason that most of the books, I don't want to say most, but it's the norm for the books in Vegas to not allow you to run parlays or create parlays on the reverse run line in Major League Baseball. They just do not allow it. So there's got to be a fairly good reason for that.
These are the house inefficiencies we talk about. The books would love you to buy points. They would love you. They would send you a jet plane and bring you to their casino. If you're going to be buying points all the time and playing teasers and betting, 3-game parlays on the point spread, right? Those are the house strengths you're playing into. We bet into the house inefficiencies. We bet what they don't want us to bet. Okay, so just have a look at that. Matt and I, we make 3-game parlays we make 3-game parlays that are paying 30, 40, and 50 to 1, if you can believe that. Like the other night we had, you talked about that San Diego LA game. San Diego was 4 to 1. This is what we had. San Diego was a 4 to 1 on the reverse run line against the Dodgers, and they won that game. What was it, Matt? 6-2 or something like that. And then that was the night that Winnipeg beat Nashville.
Yeah, we had Winnipeg on the reverse. Yeah,
we played Winnipeg on the reverse run line.
Yeah,
and we hooked those two up, right? So we had Winnipeg minus 1.5 plus 335 onto San Diego minus 1.5 plus $4, and then we had some other games, right? And those parlays were paying 40 and 50 to 1, a 3-team parlay. So when you bet those type of parlays, you hit 1 out of 50, you break even, right? 1 out of 30, you break even. And believe me when I tell you, you're going to hit 1 out of 30, right? You key a game. That's the way we do this. You key one game. If it wins, it wins. It loses, it loses. You just key one game, right? You take that game, you take that key team, a small underdog, whether it's basketball, hockey, or baseball, and you play it on the reverse line, right? So let's say you take Cincinnati to beat the Mets, minus 1.5 plus 240, right? That's your key game. Instead of betting that game for, let's say, your traditional 2-unit bet, you make 10 parlays, right? 10 3-game parlays. You bet 0.2 units on every parlay, right, on 10 parlays. And if Cincinnati loses, you lose the same amount, right? You go 0.2 units times 10 is 2 units, right? It's the same thing as betting it flat. If it loses, you lose it anyway. So what we like to do is we'll key one game. Let's say Cincinnati minus 1.5 plus 240, and then we'll pick one other game, whatever it may be. Let's say San Francisco, for instance, at plus $1.40. So now you got Cincinnati minus 1.5 plus 240 onto the Giants plus $1.40, and then we're going to add on games, right? Those are our two keys. Cincinnati, San Fran's our secondary key. Then we're going to add 4 games. So let's just say Tigers, Marlins, Padres, and Oakland A's. Those are our 4 add-ons, right? We're playing all dogs, okay? So now if Cincinnati wins and the Giants win, there's a good chance we're going to hit one of those 4 games, maybe 2, maybe 3. Who the hell knows? Okay? That's 4 parlays. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to take Cincinnati minus 1.5 plus 240, and we're going to take another secondary key. So let's say Pittsburgh, the Penguins, minus 1.5 plus $1.70, okay, against Washington. Now we got Cincinnati minus 1.5 onto San Fran onto 4 games. Now we're going to do the same thing. Cincinnati minus 1.5 onto Pittsburgh minus 1.5, and we're going to use 3 more add-ons, right, to give us 7 parlays altogether. So now we're going to have 4 parlays with Cincinnati, San Fran, and 4 teams, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, and 3 teams, and we're going to do it one more time. Cincinnati and, let's say, Texas plus $1.60. And we're going to add 3 more teams. In total, 3 more add-ons, right? And an add-on is absolutely anything. You can just play any game, any, underdog. It doesn't really matter, right? You don't have to spend a lot of time studying it. You can just throw any add-on on there, right? Because, some of them are going to hit. I promise some are going to hit. So now you got Cincinnati, San Fran onto 4 games, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh onto 3 games, Cincinnati, Texas onto 3 games. That gives you 10 parlays. If Cincinnati wins, there's a really good chance you're going to hit at least one parlay, right? And these parlays are paying, let's say you're making them for, $10 each, right? Let's say $5 each. Let's say your bet is $50. Your average bet is $50. You're making these parlays for $5 each. They're paying usually more than 20 to 1, right? You just hit one parlay, right? You're going to make that 50. You're going to profit $50. If you hit 3 or 4, you can have big nights by betting the exact same amount, $50, right? If you hit 4 or 5 or 6 parlays, you're going to have a big night. So not only is this a fun way to play, it puts you in action in a ton of games. You only need to pick one game a day, pick one key game a day. If that loses, so what? It loses. You go on to the next day, right? You're going to hit your key game. Well, even if you hit it twice a week or 3 times a week, there's a good chance you're going to make some good money. Okay, so let's focus on that. One key game. That's my parlay strategy that I've spoke about before. I have a couple of videos out on it. It could be applied to baseball. It could be applied to hockey. It could be applied to any sport, right? Focus on underdogs. When you're playing traditional parlays, let's say a 3-game football parlay, all on the point spread, that's a losing proposition over time, right? Because the house has an edge. It's like in blackjack. There's a percentage they're going to hold. In blackjack, the house edge, if you play it right, is, let's say, 3.5% or whatever, right? That's a percentage they're going to hold. In parlay betting, it's the same thing. There's a percentage that the house is going to hold, right? You cannot overcome it. It's like the juice, You can't overcome it. There's a percentage they're going to hold over time, So when we're playing these parlays, these money line parlays, we're getting the true odds. There's no house advantage whatsoever. There's a big house inefficiency because we're not getting the traditional, like, what are the odds of hitting a 2-game parlay, right? They pay 2.6 to 1 or 2.5 to 1, depending on where you bet, right? The odds of hitting it are 3 to 1. There's a house edge there. We're playing 3-game parlays or 2-game parlays that are paying more than that. They're paying 7 to 1, 8 to 1, 9 to 1. On 3-game parlays, they're paying 20 to 1 and 25 to 1 and 30 to 1, right? This is playing into the house inefficiency. So, it's not going to take you long to change your mindset. For anybody to change your mindset, this is really the parlay strategy I just spoke about. It's really a fun way to play because you risk a very little, you can win a lot, and you have so many games in action. You have so many games working, right? Especially if you do it, like, let's say on the weekend, on a Saturday, right? You can play an early game, and if that early game loses, you can do it again in the night game. But if that early game wins, everything that comes in after that, all these bets that you have, every time one of those games hits, you're getting money, right, at night. So it's really a fun way to bet. You don't risk a lot, but you can win a lot. And we've put that to use, and we do it all the time. It's just a great way to play, Matt.
Like Brian mentioned, there's a video there for the parlay tutorial. If you want to check it out, it's at our YouTube page, tinyurl.com/sportswagers. Brian, we kind of went on for a little while there. A lot of good strategy, a lot of good advice. Those baseball betting parlays, we're having a good time. Reverse run lines, reverse puck lines, crossing over in basketball. Sell those points. I mean, it's hard to get out of the habit of, if you're used to playing pro lines or parlays, 3-4 teams, playing favorites, getting even money or 2 to 1 back on a parlay. This is a radical shift from that, but like Brian said, it's way more fun, and you can bet small and win big.
You really can, and I'm on Twitter all the time, and most people, it's really hard to change a mindset. It's very difficult to change a person's mindset. They don't see these favorites. They're just, I don't know, they're kind of conditioned to believe that good teams beat bad teams and home teams beat away teams, and the Raiders never lose on Monday Night Football and stuff like that. But it's all bullshit. It really is. You have to change your mindset, right? Underdogs win every single day. They win every single day. There's so much variation. It's one of the things we always talk about. Look at the Vegas San Jose series. Vegas killed them the first game 7-0, and that kind of poisoned everybody's mind, thinking that Vegas is really this great, and they're a good team. What Vegas has done is incredible. You cannot take, it's one of the greatest sports stories in history, almost like the Miracle Mets in 1969. They're going to be the Miracle Knights in 2018. But San Jose was a better team in the last 5 games. And they're watching from the rail now, right? They outplayed them every single game but the first one, and some of them were by a wide margin. So why is San Jose watching from the rail? Because Vegas had better goaltending and they got the bounces. That's all. We're going to go into a whole thing about hockey luck. It's not the time right now. We'll do it at the beginning of next year. We have some great strategies and philosophies that we're going to talk about. But, hockey is such a luck-driven sport. It's just incredible what a luck-driven sport it is. Like, you get a guy who's on a breakaway, he's on a breakaway, and he either scores or he misses. And that could be the difference of great playing. Like, it doesn't matter what a team does, what their strategy is, how they play. If a guy scores on that breakaway, that one goal, maybe they win the game. If he misses, maybe they lose the game. So just on that one play, right, a breakaway, just a breakaway. That's all it is. If he scores on that goal, maybe the team wins, and if he doesn't, maybe they lose. And that's the difference in the game. That's luck. Every overtime game in the playoffs is nothing but pure luck. Watch the game. There's the tips, there's deflections, there's, pucks off legs and knees and arms and shoulders and, pucks off the post. It's every one-goal game that you've ever watched in hockey is luck. That's all it is. It's such a luck-driven story. Look at Pittsburgh this year. Pittsburgh is on the verge of elimination. They won the Stanley Cup last year. They won the Stanley Cup the year before. Were they the best team? Maybe. But they won because of luck. That's all. Those close games, those overtime games, those 7-game series, they won a lot of those. This year, they're not. This year, Washington's, winning those close games, scoring with 3 minutes left in the game, scoring in overtime, right? Washington could be out 4-0. Pittsburgh could be out 4-0. It's all such a luck-driven sport. The good teams are going to make the playoffs. The teams with the good goaltending are going to make the playoffs. But it's such a luck-driven sport, and that's why these underdogs are so live, because of the variation. Because you have to play the value. That's all it is. Look at Winnipeg, Nashville, right? We're not predicting Winnipeg's going to win. We didn't predict Winnipeg is going to win that series, right? We're playing the value based on what we know. We know that Winnipeg is just as good as Nashville. We know that Winnipeg's goaltending is probably better than Nashville's, just based on that. It's just value, and you got to hope you get the bounces. That's all. That's all. You got to play the value, hope you get the bounces, and let the chips fall where they may. Same with baseball. Baseball, right? You got bases loaded. Guy takes a swing at a pitch. He swings out of his shoes. What happens? He touches the ball, lightly touches the ball, and it rolls slowly up third base for an infield single, right? And everybody's safe. The same situation, the next game, guy hits the ball square, hits it, squares it right up, hits it to the shortstop, right? Hits it way harder than the guy that just touched it and reached first base. And this guy hits it square, right to the shortstop. He flips it over to second base, and you're out of the inning. That's all luck. There's so much variation in every single game, and that's why it's impossible to predict the outcome of games. You must play the value. You got to play the value. You got to be out of your mind to be laying big prices in baseball. Look at this last week. All these guys, Kershaw and Strasburg, and they lose. They lose often. A guy like Chris Sale or Clayton Kershaw or how many games is Max Scherzer going to win this year? Maybe he wins 20. Maybe he wins 18. He's going to start 35 games. You're going to lay 2.5 to 1 every time he pitches when at least half of his games are going to be decided by the bullpen. That's nuts. When you think about it, it's nuts. Look at Lance McCullers on Houston, right? Doesn't matter what team you take. Doesn't matter what pitcher you take. The best pitchers in baseball are going to start between 35 and 40 games, and they're going to win between 18 and 20, let's say, right? It's about half their games. The rest of those games are going to be decided by the bullpen, and it's just too risky. And then you got a slew of second, third, and fourth tier pitchers, and a lot of them are in the $1.40, $1.50, $1.60 range, and it's nuts to be spotting prices in baseball, whether you're betting money line parlays. Like when you make a 2 or 3 game money line parlay in baseball that pays less than what it should, you are going against it. You are betting into exactly what the house wants you to. They're not smart bets, okay? They're not smart bets. You may win. Over time, you're not going to win. Trust me on that. You're not going to win, all right? So just apply our theories. At least try it. Try it for 2 months. Try it for a month. If you're, used to or conditioned to bet on favorites, try our philosophy for a month. Get back to us. Let us know how you're doing, right? You're going to have good months. You're going to have bad months. But the beautiful thing about playing these money line dogs all the time is that if you do have a bad year, it's going to be a very, very small loss. If you have a good year, it's going to be a big win, okay? It's going to be a big win. When you're betting favorites and you have a bad year, you're going to get buried. You're going to get buried alive. You're going to get ruined. When you're betting favorites on money lines, on point spreads, on whatever, and you have a bad year, you're going to get absolutely buried, okay? So just kind of change your mindset, if you will, if you can, and try it out for a month. Get back to us. Let us know how you're doing. If you got any questions or if there's anything else you want to discuss, feel free. We're always here, and we'll leave it at that. We've kind of cut back on these podcasts. Instead of doing them every week, we're going to put them out once a month at the beginning of each month. Once a month at the beginning of each month, and we're going to talk about these philosophies and other things that you can do to improve your chances of winning.
I like it, Brian. Well said. If you do want to contact Brian, you can get in touch with him on Twitter. He's there each and every day, pretty much most hours of the night. You're up till 2 o'clock in the morning watching the late games, Brian. You love it. You can't help yourself. At SportsWagers3, you can find Brian on Twitter. The show, of course, is at SportsWagersPod. We're on Facebook as well if you want to send a message there. Facebook.com/SportsWagers. Instagram, SportsWagers.ca. Like we said earlier, archive podcasts as well as Brian's tutorial videos on the YouTube page, tinyurl.com/SportsWagers. With that, Brian, is there anything you'd like to add before we get out of here?
That is it, Matt.
All right. Well, for Brian Sherwood Steinberg, I'm Matthew Finney. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the SportsWagers.ca podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe. For free daily picks, visit SportsWagers.ca.